Now there it is.
Good morning. It's Monday, August 24th, 2020. This is 9 a.m. This is the Muscatine County Board of Supervisors. I'd like to call the meeting to order. First item on the agenda is to review the agenda.
Move to approve.
Second.
I have a motion by Nathan and a second by Santos. Is there any discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the same. Motion carries. Item number 3 is discussion of possible action to approve claims dated August 24th, 2020 in the amount of $669,568.79.
I would move to approve.
Have a motion by Scott, and a second by Santos. Is there any discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the same. Motion carries. Item number 4 is discussion of possible action to approve an ordinance rezoning approximately 6 acres in 76 Township from C2 Commercial District to R1 Residential District on the second of 3 readings.
Move to approve.
Second.
I have a motion by Nathan, a second by Scott. Have no further comments or public comments?
This is that one just south, or on, near the county line on 61, I believe, correct?
Okay. All right, this is a roll call vote. Nathan?
Aye.
Scott?
Aye.
Doug?
Aye.
Santos?
Aye.
And I vote aye. Motion carries. Item number 5 is items at the Assessor's Office, Deputy Assessor Delane Clark. Item 5A is discussion of possible action to disallow previously approved homestead credit. Good morning, Delane.
Good morning. Okay, so item A, these are just applicants that, the individual still owns the property as of July 1st, but the address was different, and that's why we're sending them letters to inform them that the homestead is going to be removed. So we recommend to the board to disallow those. And then the item B is the new applications for 2020, recommend to have those approved. There are 4 applications that were applied for, and 2 of those are homestead and 2 are military. The one is vacant, and the property was sold, and so that's why we're having that one disallowed. The second one is a military one, and they did not serve active duty, so that one, we'd like to have that disallowed. And the third one is a military also, and they did not serve the required time in the military to have that one, so disallow that one. And also the homestead, they have a homestead on another piece of property, and they just signed up without realizing that they only had to sign on one property, so we would like that one to be disallowed.
Okay. Are there questions?
See that?
Let's take these one at a time. On the A, we have the homestead tax credits.
I will move to disallow the previously approved homestead credits in 5A.
Can I make there's a military one on that too.
Okay,
Homestead and military credits,
Yes.
if I may.
okay, we have an amendment to his
second
motion.
that.
We have a motion by Nathan and a second by Doug. Any further discussion? All in favor?
I just have a question. So if somebody has a concern or a question like this, they basically reach out to you, they may file a,
They can call and tell us that they are still residing there. Otherwise, the other option is they can take it to district court. They have 20 days to do that. And it's in that letter that we send out to them.
Okay, so I have a motion and a second. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the same. Okay, item B is the discussion possible action to allow new 2020 homestead tax credit and/or military tax exemption applications, except those recommended to be disallowed by the assessor's office.
Something else one bit?
So you, did
so
I hear?
is that the page 6 on this? Those are new?
Yes,
Or
the very
page
last
6.
page.
You want to move it?
I'll make a motion to approve.
So I have a motion by Santos,
Second.
second by Scott. Any discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the same. Motion carries. I just let the public know if there are any questions on the proper use and these tax credits, always give the assessor's office a call. They'll be happy to help you.
Yes.
Thank you, Delaney.
Thank you very much.
Okay, item number 6, or projects update with Mike Nolan of Horizon Architecture. I'll assume Mike is on the phone with us this morning.
Yes, he is.
Is he unmuted?
He just unmuted.
Good morning, guys. Everybody hear me okay?
Yes. You have the floor, Mike.
Hey, good morning. It's nice to hear everybody. So just wanted to run through a quick update on what we have going on, and then also talk about the next round of projects from the facility master plan and where we're at with those guys. First and foremost, we'll run through the maintenance building. I know there's still a lot of questions and probably some mounting frustration while we're not moved in there yet. The holdup on that has been with the vendor for the fire alarm. Oscar has reached out. We had a minor correction for the form that sent us almost a month ago. Oscar was coordinating that, and basically the representative from the vendor went incommunicado on us. I made a couple of phone calls. Sherry made a phone call, and we finally should have the corrected paperwork back as of this morning. We're still kind of unclear on why that was such a difficult process to get through, but to get that agreement in place, we had to have that agreement, which would then clear out some of the faults that were showing on the fire alarm system, which would allow the fire chief and the city to sign off on the fire alarm. Once that is complete, which hopefully if the paperwork is correct today, we'll get that final inspection scheduled with the fire chief and with the city, and we'll have our occupancy. The other item that we're coordinating on that is there's a lower landing, if you recall. We added a little additional rail for the ramp on the side of the building. At the time that was installed, that was supposed to be coordinated to be at the exact same elevation as the sidewalk by the concrete contractor. Unfortunately, it's off by about 3 inches, which creates that lower portion of sidewalk, which is less than 4 feet, now technically qualifies as the ramp. So the city is requiring us to install additional handrail around the corner and down to the sidewalk. That is in process. I don't anticipate that's going to be an issue. Previously talking with the city, they said they would have no issue doing a temporary CO for the railing. So once we get the fire alarm, we should be full speed ahead to get into the building. Other items, the overhead door, the coiling door, that's scheduled for this week. So we should have an electrician in there to make the modifications needed for that, and then that door will hopefully be installed by the end of the week. Those are the last major items that we have on the building, and then we're working our way through a few other punch list items.
Mike, what's the
Before I go on, there's a couple of punch list things I want to address, but I want to that's quite a bit of information, so let room for a few question and answers there.
Thank you, Mike. What's the cost of making the city happy on that 3 inches?
At this point, I am not addressing that as something that is going to be our responsibility. When we made that change to add the additional lower landing, I was fairly explicit with the contractor that that needed to be, basically the slope that was acceptable on that. So at this point, they're coordinating handrail. They have not come back for additional costs, so I would not expect to see that come across your desk, if that makes any sense.
Okay, what's it going to cost the contractor? I'm more interested in how much it's going to cost because of what the city did, not how much it's going to cost us.
Sure, I can get you some answers on that. I haven't seen a number that has been requested. My guess is probably in the manner of $1,500 to $2,000 based off of the previous handrail. But I can find out for sure and let you know on that.
$600 an inch. That's what I charge.
Okay. Any other questions, Nathan?
No, that's all I got now. Thanks, Mike.
Anybody else?
Yeah, I
Oh,
have a few questions. So, Mike, I walked over there to the building last week on Monday after the follow-up meeting, and I had some questions around, in my perspective about, I guess, quality of work possibly, and maybe some oversight of installation of certain pieces of equipment. Some of the concerns that I had were around one of the HVAC units that's over, I believe, one of the bathrooms.
Yeah, can I give a quick update on that?
Yeah, I'd like that.
Yeah, absolutely. So I know exactly what you're going to address. I was there with Joe Lohheim, the mechanical engineer, a couple of days after that happened. just to catch everybody up, we had requested to have the mechanical plumbing contractor come do a walkthrough of the building with maintenance staff to give them a rundown of the systems and how things work. During that walkthrough, we did discover a few things. I will say that the gentleman who gave the walkthrough, we're still trying to track that down, conducted himself in what we felt was a fairly unprofessional manner, was speaking out of turn on a lot of the work, and basically trying to cover tracks on some issues that were created during installation by the mechanical contractor. So those are some punch list items that we're adding. I think, Santos, what you're addressing is the filter access for the units. So we have basically an air handler unit over top of the storage area, and we have an energy recovery ventilator that's over top of one of the bathrooms. The storage area, what happened is there's some piping essentially is not allowing clearance for the filter to move. So we issued a sketch on that as of Friday to have Colony, the subcontractor, come and revise the piping. The piping is Colony's piping, the unit placement is Colony's placement. So they're going to correct that. The challenge with that, other additional challenge is that with the 2x2 ceiling grid, which is quote unquote an access ceiling, it's going to be cumbersome to get the filter in and out. So I've issued a sketch over the weekend as well to coordinate with the general contractor to get a full-size 2x4 opening, which will allow access to that unit. The unit in the bathroom is a little more challenging just based off of the geometry of the energy recovery ventilator. It has 4 different filters that are kind of at a catty corner. After walking through it, scratched our heads with the mechanical engineer, we issued another sketch on that to essentially allow 4-foot by 6-foot full opening underneath that ventilator, relocate one of the lights and relocate one of the exhaust fan in the bathroom to get access to that. I think it's something that we talked about. You know, typically an access ceiling, it's not that big a deal. I think with the space that was left there and some of the, it just got tight, and these are things you kind of pick up on punch lists. So these items are being addressed and corrected as punch list items at this point.
So, I guess my initial thoughts looking at some of those things, Mike, is being a little experienced in some of those things. As owners of those buildings, it's a difficult task for us to find those after we've been turned over the unit. You know, and I guess my perspective is needing to have a little more oversight from either your department or your project management in regards to some of those things, because had those been seen before, they could have been addressed probably a little bit earlier versus having to have our maintenance technicians to kind of find those items. In my perspective, I was going over there just to look at the railing that we were getting delayed on, and then scratching my head when I see the guy walking up on a ladder, not being able to pull out a filter without hitting a drop ceiling. And, you know, I run into safety concerns, you know, the maintenance of those types of items. And then just minimal things that I think there were probably some, you know, quality issues when I look at the air compressor, the piping's at an angle, the air compressor's not anchored down into the floor. Things that I'm concerned that I think that shouldn't be done or shouldn't be turned over to us and say, okay, here you go. And now we're struggling through as maintenance to find those items. So trying to be a little bit more upfront with you and candid on those things, Mike. I think those are things that I'm concerned about, knowing that you're hired to be our project manager on those jobs. And I think having to, have punch list items at what cost? Who ultimately pays for those things now that we're having to address those issues after the fact? And I think we look back on the minutes and, understanding we went through COVID things, but the building was supposed to be complete in April per our minutes, and then it was late May that you commented, and now we're going into September. And I think those, from a perspective as a customer, in the end, we want to give those buildings everything that we need to have for our maintenance technicians, and I think that's a challenge from our perspective to have to be addressing these issues versus had they been found early in the project execution, we probably wouldn't be addressing them as punch list items. We could have been already in the building. So that's just a little feedback from my perspective, and I think it is urgent for our perspective that we need to get those items addressed. But I think those are some things that I'd like to make sure that we have corrective actions moving in the future.
Absolutely. No, and I appreciate that. And, again, nobody wants to be in a position where we're, 4 or 5 months late on delivery of the project. We are where we are, and we keep pushing forward on that. As to these particular items, we had a discussion, sat down with Oscar and Sherry late last week and just discussed how we could make sure we had better constructability reviews. And I will talk a little more to that, the overall process here when we get into the next round of projects. Unfortunately, there's going to be growing pains anytime you get into a building. That's one of the reasons we have a 1-year warranty on it. I'm sure there's a little bit of experience that comes along with it of now seeing the situation, sitting there with myself, mechanical engineer. We looked at it and said, yeah, you know what, that's probably something that, we may have been able to think about, anticipate. That being said, it is what it is right now. So we kind of move forward to work on correcting it. So, that's a little bit, that's where we are right now with the building. As far as with Oscar, yeah, absolutely. We sat down, we'll talk through things more in depth. We're involved in the design process. There's just some things that looking at 2D drawings don't always come out as when it's there in 3D, that in reality we run into it. So I understand your frustration. All I can say is that we will continue, as we have with all of our projects, to identify and correct issues and make sure that everything is done correctly by the time we get to the end of it.
So at this time, you're stating that we will be in the building without a temporary occupancy permit by the first of the month? Or we're still trying to coordinate jobs and
Right
controls?
now is we have to have the fire alarm test done, and we have to have that additional railing installed to be full clear occupancy. I'm not going to give any guarantees on the timeline. That's a contractor.
Okay. All right.
Okay, so that's the maintenance building. Where are we at on the other buildings?
The deputy's quarters, ticking along there very well. All the foundations, concrete interior. I think everything is poured. Actually, when I was there, they had the upper poured as well. So all the concrete is in place. Exterior wall framing went up, and they should be setting trusses this week. So that's ticking along pretty well. I think they're on schedule to be all interior, exterior framing completed towards the 1st of September, and then we'll start working on the interior finishes and set out. And then we're starting to get really busy. So far, so good. We'll have our first official all hands on deck. Let's start to get more trades in meeting tomorrow. So I'll give you any more updates we got from that. But so far, Myers has been on top of it, and things are ticking along well. So we will keep pressing against slating that one for completion towards the middle of November, and that includes all the reskinning of the exterior of the existing building as well. The other project we have is we are doing the hot water upgrades, hot water system for the jail. We had a walkthrough with contractors late last week. So we should have, we're going to soliciting 3 bids. We know we'll get 2 for sure. We have one that's on the fence that may not have the manpower to do it. So if we have, whatever we get back with that, we'll be talking about that next Monday, but that will upgrade the hot water conditioning system for the jail.
Okay.
Any questions on those projects?
So do we normally try to get 3 on those bids that you're talking about for the hot water system, or do we just get 2 that we know we can get? How is that working? Why are we just doing 2?
Threshold so the threshold for bidding is $124,999 for the county's policy to go to a full public bid process. For this, since it was below that, the opinion and cost was around $110,000. We chose to go invitation directly to 4 contractors. We had 3 contractors that Oscar recommended, 2 of which declined to bid because they didn't have the time or capacity for it. We had 2 other general contractors or mechanical contractors who also have familiarity that have looked at it and have the capacity to work on the system. So what we would do is say we requested 4 bids, we received 2, and that would be your decision at that point whether to accept the low bid from the 2 that didn't choose to bid.
Okay.
And these are mechanical contractors that have experience, we have experience with our other buildings and some of our infrastructure, I would assume.
That's correct. Yeah, the two that are looking at bid right now are Crawford, who does regular maintenance on our geothermal and is familiar with our equipment, and J.L. Brady, who is also the mechanical plumbing contractor on the deputy's quarters and comes highly recommended by our engineers.
Sherry, what if the bids come back over that? What if they come back over 125?
Well, then, you mean as far as how we go about it? That doesn't negate our process. You know, our stated probable cost was under the full bidding process, so if they come in, then your choice is, do we bid again, do we accept one of those? But it doesn't cause us to have to go out and do an official bid process.
Okay.
That makes sense.
It's more of a bid if we're comfortable through the results of this process, if it's above or below the opinion of cost, and we understand why we could choose to move forward with one of the low bidders, or we could go,
That
or we
is
could
the-
go to a full bid if
That
we
is the
chose.
board's policy, that is not a legal
Okay,
number.
that's what I wasn't sure if that was
No,
like some sort of
right, that's the
government.
board's policy, so if they would come in over, which let's hope they don't.
Yeah, no, it was just a
um,
question.
yeah.
Okay.
Okay. Mike, what else you got?
So I just want to talk real quick about where our development, so per the facility master plan and for the county budget, the next two projects we have in the hopper are the addition, the Shallyport addition and booking area extension for the county jail, and renovations and exterior maintenance on the county attorney's office. So we've gone through, had conversations with Captain McCleary and also conversations with Jim Berry, just talking through current needs, what we talked about in the facility master plan, and just verified the scope that we're looking for. Talking with Captain McCleary, essentially what we're looking for is just to expand the booking area. The current was designed with the original portion of the jail back in '96 for about 100 prisoner capacity, and now we're have, as you know, well over 200 is not a small number to have there. So we discussed some bottlenecks that happen. So essentially looking to work on the flow and kind of the waiting as they in process and accept prisoners into the facility. It should be pretty straightforward, likely a smaller addition, and probably a little bit of traffic and parking rework over there on the south side of the jail to make that happen. So we have working on getting that proposal together, and that will be, Sherry has a few things that she's wrapping up right now, but probably by the middle of September, we'll have those for you guys to discuss. We'll have full mechanical, electrical, plumbing, architectural, structural, and site civil. Team I'm working with is Axiom Consultants, who's been great on these last several projects, and we're also looking to work with Watersmith Engineering, a local Muscatine firm, to do our site and civil engineering for these projects.
They did the parking lot.
So just to discuss really quick what will come along with that and typical project process, it sounds like I just wanted to re-hit on this a little bit and see if there's any modifications we want to make to our process if we've had it. More or less when we started working on these projects, 3 years back, we didn't really have a formal process, so sitting down and working with Sherry, Oscar, and then with the supervisors over the years, we've developed what I feel like is a pretty good process, but everything has room for improvement. More or less, we start out with a design services contract. We'll go through and do our survey and documentation. We do the schematic design, and typically the players involved with that conversation are going to be the facility operator. So in this case, for the jail, we'll work with Captain McCleary and his staff. For the county attorney's office, we'll work with Jim Berry and his staff, and have a conversation with them as we go throughout to refine and make sure that we have our scope defined moving for the schematic design phase. Sherry and Oscar will maintain contact during that as well. We like to make sure that they're understanding where we are, as far as budget, as far as any sort of issues that the county might have within some portions of the project. We'll develop schematic design and develop an overall project budget, and that's the form typically we'll come back to the supervisors for the first time to discuss and have our check and say, hey, here's where we are, here's where we think we're going, here's what we think it's going to cost, and we have a opportunity for you guys to see and review the plans. as long as everything looks good there, it doesn't officially generally take a vote. It's just more of a yep, consensus to move forward. We'll move forward with construction documentation. Again, maintaining constant communication with Sherry and Oscar as we develop the finer points of the project. With Oscar now, we're going to spend a little more time probably talking about the maintenance portion, things that they're going to have to touch and feel to make sure that they're comfortable with our suggestions. And get through that, get a full project developed and the budget put together. And then typically where the supervisors are seeing that again is when we're asking for basically the public meeting to release for bid. I want to offer, if they want to do an intermediate meeting, maybe 75%, I would certainly be glad to put the plans in front of the supervisors again prior. In the past, we kind of looked at it and there hasn't been a whole lot of questions up until we get to budget. That's certainly something that we can do. That we feel like that would be a better approach. People feel more comfortable with that. Otherwise, we get to the end with the budget and the construction and bid documents ready to go, and then we release for the public bid. And you're familiar with that process. We go out for the bid, we do the walkthrough, we collect the bids, and then we make a recommendation for contract with the supervisors. So that's basically the design portion of the process. So any questions or any thoughts on how you'd like to see that, or any differences as we start to jump into these projects?
Yeah, so I'd like to see if there's a possibility, does Axiom provide 3D drawings for some of these projects? I think, like you mentioned earlier, some of the 2D drawings, I think, give us a perspective from one view, but if you're able to actually see the 3D drawings, you're actually able to see where these locations of this new piece of equipment may be, where some of the offices layouts may be able to see, and you could probably get better constructive feedback in regards to, just overall project. I know it may be a little more added cost on some of those things, but I don't know if Axiom provides that.
Yeah, we certainly can take the projects into the BIM environment, and that's something I can discuss with them. We're typically working in BIM. Sometimes with smaller projects, it's easier just to go 2D. But I will certainly bring that to them. And I would anticipate there will be a little more cost associated with that, but if it's of value, then I'm certainly glad to present that option.
I think it would help out just on my perspective on that. It may be an upfront cost, but it may be paying off more in the end.
Yeah, I think it depends on the complexity of the project, whether or not.
Yep.
Yeah, agree.
And then when,
So the next, go ahead.
Go ahead.
So was there any other questions or discussion on the design phase or design approach?
No, I think we're good.
Hearing none, and then I would like to talk a little bit, and this is where I feel like we need to have, just to define, what expectations and what we're providing are. So, Santos, you mentioned that you view me as a project manager, and I think that's, we need to define exactly what that means, and certainly is a possibility to provide a higher level, but we've typically done in the past where a typical architectural fee, the architect provides contract administration, which means more or less do at least a monthly site visit, verify that the project is being constructed, or more or less verify if the work is done to the amount that the contractor is asking for payment, and then the architect will answer questions, review submittals, things along that line. But it's probably, what we've discovered, is a much more hands-off than what the county really needs and the service that I was providing for that. So what we're working with right now is what I would call a CA plus construction management. So what that service level is basically a higher level of construction administration, but not really to the level of project management. I have no fiduciary ability to put any sort of funds together for the county. I don't really have much of a hammer over top of the general contractor other than kind of being there point to point. That's why you'll see me in front of you a lot, kind of asking questions, making updates. But what you get with that kind of a higher level is that I am on site at least once a week, usually more frequently than that, depending on the phase of the project. And that's, have a conversation, walk through with the general contractor. Any subs are on site, answer any questions that we have, make sure that things generally are being constructed in accordance with the documents. This is, if there was a full-time need for a project manager, this is what a county employee may fill that role, but we decided, it kind of seems like with the project load we have, particularly once we get work through the master plan, it probably doesn't make a lot of sense for you guys to have a full-time employee for that. Again, if this is something that we want to look at or change, I'm certainly happy to entertain that. You know, we talked with Oscar over time, he has a lot of things on his plate, so there again, you know, the intent, or at least the request desires then to have me be a little more hands-on, eyes-on the projects, not necessarily in a project manager role, but more as in a, you know, just a higher level of construction administration. We also conduct official bi-weekly job meetings. That's generally with the general contractor. We'll bring together everybody, all the subcontractors, and answer any hot questions, talk about upcoming ideas or things that are happening. Again, you know, COVID is what it is. That's kind of where we were doing pretty good in our bi-weekly job meetings at about the time where mechanical stuff was starting to go into the building. And then we kind of got to a pause and we didn't have those meetings anymore. So communication, obviously, a takeaway item from the maintenance building here. More or less constant contact with the general contractor, checking in with them a couple of times a week, if not more frequently, just to make sure that things are on track, that they have everything they need. I do most of the communication then with the supervisors. So what you may see in a typical situation is there's change orders, things like that. The general contractor will be coming to you to do that. Kind of as courtesy to them, and I feel like for continuity of communication, it works better for them to route those requests through me, then I bring them to you, kind of along the way that Keith would be giving you updates. So that's a place where we do have a few more touch points. Documenting progress, so be it photographic, you'll see some more construction site visit reports where we didn't have official meetings where the contractor wasn't putting together meeting minutes, keep all that stuff together. A lot of it is just trying to resolve issues at the lowest level. So if there's little questions, little minor changes, modifications, one I can't do and nobody can really do is prescribe means and methods to the contractor, tell them how to do their work. But if we do identify things, again, we try and work these things out at the lowest level. If there's minor things, then again, just answering questions, issuing guidance without changing the scope or the terms of the contract. Work on punch list inspection, and again, it's we are working through punch lists. It's a little, you know, I understand it's frustrating to have a lot of items on a punch list. That's not anybody's intent or anybody's desire. It just is what it is. But we do work on that. We document. We make sure that all these items do get corrected, and then also track that through the first year of the building. As we move in, we're going to find things. You know, everything has little growing pains, but over that first year, contractor owns 100% of it. We touch and feel, get all that stuff corrected. We do a lot of coordination with the city, so in regular contact with Mike Hopkins, city inspectors, trying to, you know, get things moved along, make sure we're addressing any issues or questions or comments that they have. Facilitate communications with vendors, particularly for direct purchase. So we had some direct purchase equipment, direct purchase furniture. It's better for the county just to do that directly versus running it through the general contractor, so you're not paying markup for things that you're essentially purchasing off the shelf. So that's another thing I help coordinate that between Sherry and Oscar. And then, like I said, continue to monitor it throughout the entire warranty period. We've had contacts with the community services building and a few issues. We've had a few things in the courthouse. Just basically staying on board as the county's advocate throughout that. So that's, when we say project construction management, that's kind of what I'm providing. What I'm not doing is sitting on site all day long. I don't think that makes a whole lot of sense for me to do that. You know, or if it makes sense for the county to have somebody there, that's really kind of the general contractor's responsibility. But again, if these are things that if we want to talk about doing something different or making change for the next project, I'm glad to have the discussion. So any questions on that?
Yeah. So, Mike, when you go through all your process that you're trying to share with us, I think it's a lot for us to try to take in, or at least for me from that perspective. Can you provide us the documented process that you're wanting to propose? That way we can review that internally here. I'd like to have some of those conversations with Sherry and with Nancy and maybe even Oscar. And then our board to help us understand what your proposal are, us review what you had proposed in the last project, and then come back with some feedback in regards to how I think we should be moving forward. I think just thinking out loud, I think you're right. There's certain things that we can always learn from, but I think from the perspective of what can we do better to improve is really what we're after as well too. project management oversight there every day, all day is not what we're envisioning as well, but I think there is some things that we can do to try to keep good communications from it be Oscar, it be somebody else from the staff, it may even be some involvement from our county engineer Keith or one of their subs to help us review some of those items. We as customers in the end, I think want to end up getting a good product, and I think it's you know, our due diligence as stewards of the community to make sure that we're using our dollars the best that we can. So I think that's something that I'd like to review versus just making, you know, what you're proposing is I think a good view, but I'd like to see that documented as a process and then review what we've already agreed with on the maintenance building.
Yeah, you know, I've been just listening to this and thinking through this a little bit, you know, kind of leads me to think about like the county engineer and how he operates in his business. We kind of have a process that he uses when you, and actually the county does need a representative at site for much of the work, or is probably critical points.
Yeah.
And I think that's something, you know, as I've looked at various projects that this board has done over the last 10 or 12 years that I've been paying attention, you know, we've had some projects that have been, and maybe there's a gap, you know, because I remember at one point Stu had provided some services for us that were of value to the board, but that was an employee that the county had that was more kind of that liaison between the contractor, the architect, and everything.
He was a retired employee.
And a retired employee that came out of our maintenance group. So that's an interesting thought, because depending on the size of the project, there's a lot of moving parts and moving pieces.
And I know I haven't talked to Keith about that. I'm not trying to throw you. I'm just saying that there's maybe a hybrid of some system that we can come
I think
up
we
with.
can use Keith's
But-
expertise
but I
in
think
project management and large projects.
Either somebody that Keith can delegate, or something that say, hey, once every 2 weeks, go look at something, make sure that we're getting this, what we're supposed to get. I don't know, and I'm just throwing that out there, some thoughts. I think there's some things that I'd like to still discuss on our board, Mike, and I believe that's why I think I want to review that process that you're proposing. I think there's a lot of good that we're seeing from what we've had, but I think there's, just like you mentioned, I think there's ways that we can improve, and I want to be able to make sure that we're doing that.
I
Yes,
don't,
no, absolutely. I will, what I will do is send over drafts of I think probably the contract is the best way to define that. So I'll send over drafts of the design contract that we use, and I'll also send a draft of the construction management contract that I put together.
Sherry?
I think what Mike was explaining is a construction management agreement that we have with him on this project. If we want to do something more than that, I think Mike's saying he's willing to take a look at that, but that's not something we have in writing or have done. in the
Right.
past.
You
Right.
see, and I thought that he was proposing something different. That's why I wasn't sure. So
Well, I think he's trying to translate the difference, and I think it's something we need to think about, because I think there's a need, you know, and I'm just the one thinking about how Keith does his business, and I've watched that over the years, that, you know, he has engineering staff, when they design and they go through that process, then their eyes on as well, because the general contractor should have a project manager as well. But as everybody knows, with all the moving pieces, you have to have good communication. And so I think this is something we should really think about, because we do have a couple of, probably the next two projects, like the expansion of booking at the jail. That could be kind of a tricky situation. A county engineer's office, anytime you're remodeling extensively in an area where there's work to be done, that always adds challenges. So,
you mean the attorney's office?
the county attorney, is that what it said? Oh, I said engineer? Okay, yeah, well.
I was like,
Yeah,
wow, I didn't
no.
know we were doing
No, we're not doing an office out there. No, we're doing the county attorney's office. Okay. So I think, Mike, maybe if you just take the kind of a schedule of what you're thinking, and it's something we need to discuss, and I think before we go, I mean, I think the design processes we've been fairly happy with and fairly successful with. I think where I sense maybe some struggling, or we could improve, is on the construction management, or it's kind of a hybrid construction and project management. It's really what it is.
Well, and we have.
Yeah, no, and I think that's again, my goal here was to hopefully set expectations, and if that's not what the expectation is, or the understanding is, to refine that moving forward. So, yeah, I think we've done a pretty good job with where we are, and there may be some gaps where our assumptions of what we were as a team bringing and what was just not there. I again, kind of urge to take a look at, the maintenance building was one of the bigger projects we've done, but there was time and circumstance that went along with that as well. So I just encourage you to bring that into account as you look at things. But I will provide, I'll send this out to Nancy for dissemination, essentially what we put together for scope of services and the overall contracts. We have an understanding of, exactly what it is that, the design team brings, and then what I'm offering for the construction management. Again, I serve at your pleasure. If it's not of value to the county anymore, we're certainly glad to discuss other options.
Okay. Anything else for Mike? You got anything else for us this morning, Mike?
No, that was it. No, I appreciate you having a conversation with that. So I will get this documentation over, and we will talk next Monday about the hot water, and hopefully we'll have some updates on the maintenance building at that point as well.
Okay.
Mike, what about the jail roof?
Oh,
You wanna hit on where we're at with that?
Oh, yep. So jail roof, yes, absolutely. We are doing our pre-construction meeting with that tomorrow, and I think that guys, they were wrapping up a couple of things after the derecho show. They got hit with some local cleanup items. Anticipating the beginning of that work starting either next week or the week after that. Again, we got the valve replaced for the valve modification stuff. They should be ready to hit that ground running on that. I will give an update on that next week as well. But at this point, essentially the materials they have put back to us were the exact specification. So it's going to be the same match of the TPO roof on the other Carlisle system. So no news at this point, but all good news.
Geist is the group that helped us with the community services, correct?
No,
No?
they did some work on the courthouse roof.
Watersmith did the parking lot community services.
Yeah, that's different. I was thinking the roof, I was thinking Geist was involved with that roof. Okay,
Guys did repairs to the existing jail roof last year.
okay. Okay. Anything
All right,
else?
thank you, everybody.
Thanks,
Have a great
Mike.
week, and I will talk to you next week.
All right, thanks, Mike.
All right, see ya.
Okay, item number 7, items with the county engineer Keith White. Item 7A is discussion and possible action to approve various utility permits. Good morning, Keith.
Good morning. We have one this morning from Muscatine Power and Water of Muscatine, Iowa. It was to replace a section of water main on North Mulberry Street. At quantity here, 840 lineal feet of 12-inch PVC water main. It basically goes from near the driveway of 1973 Mulberry to up near the southeast corner of 2440 Bob White, which is halfway in between Hummingbird and Bob White. They've completed the work. They have relocated the fire hydrants back out of the clear zone. And what they got left to do is restore the slopes that we had when we shouldered the road and seeded. So, recommend approval.
On these types of projects, for example, 840 feet, they put in PVC. We normally don't have any oversight in regards to tracing cables on that, or do they do that themselves?
We have none.
Okay. So when we put in something like this, for example, and knowing that it's installed in 2020, do they put in on a master plan of, hey, 840 feet was put in 2020, or do we put that in on Magic, or is there somewhere that it's documented that piping was replaced?
Well, not to speak for Power and Water, but they have, I believe, all of their water stuff mapped and on Magic, and not generally accessible to the
To the public, in regards to where that's at.
So it should, yes, it should be there.
Some sort of, okay.
So I'd accept a motion if we're,
I'll make a motion to approve.
motion by Santos, second by Doug. Any further discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the same. Motion carries. Projects update.
Two things on F-58, Old 6. Last week reported that we expected Manats to start on the subterranean work, which they have started and will continue this week. And Haggerty, who's prime, is still working on ditch cleaning up there, so that's progressing right on schedule. Questions on that one? On G28, the prime contractor PCI has been working on the hill, if you will, between Seven Springs and Burlington Road. So basically the realignment there, tearing out the existing paving, getting the realignment ready to pave down the hill there. Hire the paving subcontractor will be working on the intersection returns at Seven Springs and Kincaid this week. So that's kind of what's happening there.
G28, when do you see that being fully complete? This year,
This year,
okay, November?
yeah, by November, hopefully. I think they're
They're
making pretty good progress. I mean, that hill we knew would be a big challenge. We're into reconstruction the rest of the way, so there is some slower going. And as they maintain and accesses, tear pavement out.
I saw the email from you about railroad tracks on Highway 6.
Yes.
Just west of West Liberty being closed. And coming back from West Liberty, I noticed they do have a big electronic sign out there telling the date when that will be closed.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a DOT project on Highway 6, just west of Atlas, where the railroad tracks cross. They are detouring a long detour on their roads, which I think we all know they're gonna detour on our roads.
That's right.
And that is a common DOT practice, that they're not gonna have any responsibility for what happens to our roads, because we're not the detour, but you can bet they're gonna use Kelly and F-70, and they're not gonna run a zillion miles around on their detour.
So hopefully they don't use any of our gravel roads.
Yeah.
We're gonna have a lot of dust complaints.
Okay. Anything else, Keith?
That's all I have.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Okay, thank you. Item number 8 is discussion and possible action to approve the minutes of the August 17, 2020 regular meeting. I have a motion by Scott, second by Nathan. Any further discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, the same. Motion carries. Correspondence. Santos, did you have correspondence this week?
Yeah. Early in the week last week, I had a meeting with the West Liberty City, some of the West Liberty City Council, the administrator, and Doug, in regards to moving some better collaboration with the county board, fairgrounds, and the city. I had a Zoom meeting with a group called Casa House, which is a health and safety for foster kids program in the Quad Cities. I had a email from a Wilton resident in regards to funding for local law enforcement and making sure that we continue to fund those. I did reply to that email just sharing that I had no intentions of removing that. Email around coronavirus information from Nathan. A letter from the Iowa pork producers in regards to challenges that they've had this year in overpopulation of pork and coronavirus challenges that they've had. An email thanking the board for the naming of the potential naming of the Chuck Gertz Bridge. And I had a follow-up walkthrough after the meeting on the 17th to go look at the county building, maintenance building in regards to the railing. And then obviously, like I said, we talked about some of those things that I found when I was there looking at it. That's all I had from correspondence.
Correspondence, I also had the individual from Wilton concerned about defunding the police, and I believe I suggested to her that I'm not terribly concerned that this board would want to defund the sheriff's office.
Okay, I had nothing further to note. Scott?
All I had was the email in regard to defunding the police. I had basically that and the letter from Iowa pork producers.
Yep. Okay, how about committee meetings, Doug?
Committee meetings Wednesday, 19th, 9 a.m. We, the board of, Fair Board met with the city of West Liberty, Santos kind of arranged that for us. Work on relations and working together, moving forward. At noon on the 19th, we had the Wilton development where we discussed further details on the Highway 38 I-80 corridor project that's going on, our housing initiative, and the Freedom Rock. If anybody gets up by Wilton, take a look because it's looking like a project now. And September 6th is the dedication. There'll be a band that starts playing at noon. There will be refreshments. The dedication will be at 1 o'clock. Then Thursday, the 20th at 8 p.m. we had a Fair Board meeting at the fairground. And we also had a big super late model race this Saturday. It was a huge success. So
Very good.
Great.
that's all I have.
All right, Scott?
All right, Monday the 17th, had Conservation Board. All 4 of the cabins are set in place, in the process of running power to those currently, working on the roads back to and concrete work for sidewalks and so on and so forth. It's been a long time coming with the water situation, the high water, the seep water, but the end result here is really looking good. I mean, it
looks
is
really
really nice. So they'll get that finished up this fall here, we hope, and go from there. On Wednesday the 19th, I had Riverbend Transit. There's a lot of unknowns in that situation, obviously with the virus situation, and one of their largest contracts is Davenport Schools. There's just it's just a tough situation. It's just a tough situation, and I think it's going to take a little time to work that through. But that team that Randy has up there, they do an incredibly good job, and I'm confident they're going to get work through this to provide service as well as the financial side of it. And I also had on the 19th the Board of Health, and of course the rundown of the current status of the state and the county with the corona and so on. That's all I had.
Okay. I had on the 17th, I had a mental, and these were, my meetings were electronic, a mental health regional meeting. And then we had also this morning, we had a ad hoc or an additional meeting. There was some potential of some CARES Act federal funding coming in, and it actually came in after the meeting. So we got a letter from the state, so the board met this morning to accept the funding, and then we'll send that off. Kind of the use of which will be determined in the future. Sounds like we'll create a process to go out, and this is for providers and others that have had extraordinary expenses not covered by other funding mechanisms that there's just over $2.8 million allocated to the Eastern Iowa Mental Health Region. So that'll be funding we'll be looking at over the next short time. But again, it is federal funding and there are lots of strings attached. And so we're setting up the processes to manage those funds appropriately.
Okay.
Nathan?
The only thing I had was Veterans Affairs on Tuesday the 18th. Nothing really too exciting.
Okay.
I had the Weed Lead meeting, we had a joint meeting with the city of West Liberty Administrator and some of one of the city council members in regards to further moving on the upcoming year, kind of going through some of the coronavirus challenges, economic development, looking at some potential TIF and tax abatement options that they're trying to help the We Lead board share with future, potential investors in the community, and just kind of wanting to align goals moving forward, knowing that, as Scott has mentioned, the COVID has really affected a lot of the economic development and the businesses moving forward. So it was a very good, productive meeting that we had with them. And as Doug mentioned, also we had the meeting with the Fair Board. And I also did get an email from the Freedom Rock. I forgot on that one. That I'll following up on that one as well too. That's all I had.
Okay. Item number 11 are items with the administration office. Nancy, first is discussion possible action to approve an ordinance adopting the 2020 County Code of Ordinances on the second of 3 readings.
So moved.
So I have a motion by Nathan,
Second.
second by Scott. Any discussion? This is a roll call vote. Nathan?
Aye.
Scott?
Aye.
Doug?
Aye.
Santos?
Aye.
And I vote aye. Motion carries. Item B is discussion and direction regarding a date for public meeting regarding ATV, UTV uses on secondary roads.
So I checked with the Discovery Center about the availability of the large room out there over the next 2 weeks. And so next week, the room is available at 7 p.m. any date next week. The following week, Monday is Labor Day, and it's not available on Wednesday. So that following week, it would need to be either Tuesday, Thursday, or Friday p.m.
I'm gonna look at my calendar here. Okay, is there any preference by anyone, or
What days?
how would we like to handle that? Would that be a full board meeting, or do we want to do a subcommittee of the board to do it, to bring back recommendations, or the public hearing, public meeting?
I guess I would suggest we just do a special meeting, that's the only topic
Yeah.
that we discuss.
It's
Okay.
easy if all of us decide to show up, then we don't need to.
Right.
Yeah. Good by me, then I can, you said next.
Don had suggested that you do a Wednesday, just because there wouldn't be as many school activities, I believe is what he had said.
There's church, however, on.
Yeah, right.
So, I mean, we're gonna miss people no matter what we do, I'm afraid.
Yeah, and so that would be Wednesday the 9th, would that be the date?
Wednesday, they're not available that date.
Oh, it's not
So if we
available.
go that week, we would have to do
So-
the 8th or the
The
10th.
second week,
Yeah, okay.
but it doesn't matter, I mean, it's-
Yeah, I mean,
Oh, yeah, so first week is, yeah, so, I mean, I can do whatever, so it doesn't matter to me. 7 o'clock is always fine by me. I'm usually done with everything else by then, so.
sure.
Tuesday the 8th would be preferable for me.
Will that work for everybody else, Tuesday the 8th
At 7?
at 7 p.m.?
Tuesday the 8th at 7 p.m.?
Okay, I will get notice of that out.
That will be both in person and go to.
Yeah, the intention would be we'll allow in person, kind of with guidelines, and then we do go to electronically for anybody that cares to participate. Okay, so then it was 9, 8, 7 PM. Let me go on the calendar. All right. Anything else on that, Nancy?
No.
That'll do, okay. Did you have anything else for the board this morning?
I do not.
Okay. Item number 12 is to receive information from county employees. I see Brian.
Good morning. I'm going to give you an update of the COVID situation for Muscatine County, and this is as of yesterday, August 23rd. Total number of positive cases for Muscatine County, 923. We have not had any deaths. That total still remains at 48. Total of recovered cases, 747. As mentioned, we do have an outbreak at a long-term care facility here in Muscatine. That's probably one of the reasons why our numbers have gone up. My office continues to work with Trinity Muscatine Public Health. We've had a lot of virtual meetings over the past few weeks with long-term care facilities. We've been working, we do have migrant workers have come to Conesville. This weekend they were expecting about 7-ish workers, and then the 1st of September they're expecting more. A lot of involvement with the governor's office, the Iowa Workforce Development. They are considered under the state of Iowa as essential workers. So we've been discussing a lot of stuff, making sure that there's been testing through the Iowa Department of Public Health and other groups. So just a lot of local involvement, making sure everything's going well with the state. We've also had a lot of communications with the school districts. Today, Muscatine School District has started, I believe, Wilton will be starting later this week, and then West Liberty is starting September 8th. One of the things that I have been working with school districts is through the governor's office and the Iowa Department of Education. They have provided PPE equipment to the public school districts. So last week, and then I wrapped it up this morning, we do have PPE going out to these schools. And that's the latest I have for you, if there's any questions.
Brian, on the Conesville migrant workers that you mentioned, how many do we see coming into that city / area? You said 70 this week and then potentially more.
Earlier, probably about last month, there was probably anywhere from 400 to 700.
Wow.
We had some difficulty coordinating with the state groups. In my opinion, I don't think we were as well informed locally. There was a couple meetings where, as through my office, I insisted on participating and having some involvement in it. The last meeting we had last week was much better. Again, there are concerns. We have locally, through Chrissy Roby Williams, myself, addressed some concerns and raised some points that.
So something like that, when you mentioned about how we're helping the schools, is that something that we're going to assist Conesville in providing maybe some PPE for those individuals, or is that something?
We have provided, the state of Iowa has provided PPE early on. Again, this was more through the Iowa Workforce Development and Iowa Homeland Security, and I, as my office, more or less coordinating with. Basically, this came from the top down.
Is that who we're meeting tonight, Iowa Workforce Development?
It's not, no, it won't be workforce development, it's a local board. Works with workforce development.
With the migrant workers, we have a group that's Prodius. They are involved in that extensively. So a lot of trying to coordinate with other groups and just raise our concerns through public health, my office, on things, and I feel that they're doing much better than we probably had done last month. So it's just a means of checks and balances and just try to make sure everything's running smoothly.
Yeah, maybe if we could follow up with that next week, see what number they're at. I was just in my mind thinking, you know, where's their housing, where are they located, how is that kind of not potentially creating some challenges in regards to that community being as small as it is?
We had some issues. Again, this meeting, we actually met with the state groups, public health, local public health, my office, the Bell family. Chrissy Roby Williams has one of her people who actually lives in the community, much better communications with that. So more involvement locally.
So could you provide us an update like next
I
week
will-
on where we're at on some of
I will
those things?
certainly get a hold of Chrissy Roby Williams, and she can give me that information. I'll be glad to present that at the next meeting.
Thank you.
Thanks, Brian. Anyone else? Jim, do you have anything this morning? Mr. Barry?
Courthouse on track?
Excuse me?
Courthouse on track?
As far as I know, I don't have anything new on.
No update from the courts on anything?
Well, yeah, went last Friday and visited with the Armory again. Oscar and I did, relative to being able to try to use that facility as an alternative site for maybe a larger type trial. We did do the pilot one last Monday, picked the jury at Central and then moved the trial to the courthouse, and that went okay. I think there'll be some recommendations, but overall, I think it went pretty well. The Armory, the bigger issue is obviously there's gonna be a daily fee to use it, and then we have to clean each day. And so Oscar and I went down, met with the sergeant, just looked at things, got a rental agreement this morning via email and the cleaning list this morning. And so what we need to do now is develop a plan to how we're gonna do those things, which I don't anticipate is gonna be a problem from our end. And then get that submitted up the food chain to see if the Armory is an alternative site or not. We have Central pretty much booked between now and December. December, we run into lots of school conflicts that are already in the schedule. And of course, next year, we don't have anything booked yet because we couldn't book it when we booked these. That's where things are at with the courts and reopening. They're still planning on the 14th, and things will continue to ebb and flow between now and then, but that's where we're at.
So when somebody gets a jury summons, that pretty much tells them in their new
Right.
jury, it'll tell you, hey, now you reply to this email or present yourself at, for example, the Central or something.
Yeah, I
like
think
that.
the way the clerk is handling that is they are advised that Friday before where they need to attend or arrive at that next Monday. So realizing that, some of this, just settles at the last minute, and so then you kind of have to hold off on that, but I think that's what they did, and at this point, we don't have an alternative facility besides Central, at this stage.
Okay. Thank you, Jim. Any other county employees with anything? Okay,
It might be a good idea right now to comment in regard to let the public know that school actually started today. And to be conscientious of that, and conscientious of the school buses and stop school buses and kids going to and from and parents picking up and everything that goes with that, so.
It's been a while, right?
It's been a bit, so just be aware out there.
be safe.
Be safe, be patient, have a little tolerance for everyone. Everybody gets there safe, everybody gets home safe. That's all.
Okay, the next item on the agenda is receive comments from the public. Is anyone from the public wishing to make a comment on an item on?
We have 3 people online.
Yes, Don Briggs.
Okay, Don? Go ahead.
Hey, thanks for getting that meeting set up and everything. The one question I have on that, how are people gonna know, where do they need to look at to find out when, how to log into the Zoom on that?
We will publish an agenda for that meeting, and it will be with that agenda publication. That information
Okay,
is,
that would be under the Board of Supervisors agendas?
yep. Yep, and if you look at like our normal agendas, it'll list the Zoom or the go-to information, sorry. I was on a Zoom this morning. A go-to information in the meeting header for you there. Everything you'll need to know to access that meeting.
Okay, all right, great. And that'll be like the Monday or something before?
I hope, I
48 hours before?
I plan to get that one out this week, Don.
Oh, okay, all right, great.
Yeah,
Just
normally
that way
we,
I can pass the word on and
Right.
everything.
Yep.
And use social media to try to get enough people interested, so there. And it's like I say, if you guys need, some signatures and stuff, I'd be glad to get some just coming out there.
no, we're good to
That's
go.
all I have today, you guys are doing
All right.
good today.
Oh, well, thank you for the vote of confidence, Don.
Don, I do got a question while you're on. Don, Fruitland has a similar ordinance already passed, is that correct?
Correct.
And you
They,
share, you
they
share that
allow
with
golf
us?
carts and side-by-sides, no four-wheelers, but there is some running around town. But, they go from, sunrise to sunset, and, they gotta stay, below, I think it's 25 or 30 or 35 mile an hour inside the city limits. Basically, you're following what the, speed limit sign is in town, but golf carts are not allowed technically in the county, even like Lewis County, golf carts aren't allowed in the county, but the side-by-sides are. And I don't know about the four-wheelers in the ATVs in Lewis County. I'm been more following the UTVs than the ATVs.
Could you do us a favor and provide that for us? I know that you're locally close to there. I mean, it would be good to probably share with our board to review how their policy is written.
And I reached out to a couple of entities for theirs. I don't know if I sent them to you.
I have Louise's.
And did we get Cedars?
I haven't seen
And
Cedars.
I reached out to the cities in Muscatine. I'll follow back up with that to see what Wilton and Muscatine and Fruitland are all doing. Because anything we do, we want to be
Well,
consistent.
then that's what my
And what's
question
written.
was, because I know that went to go somewhere up there to eat, I'm not trying to propose.
Go ahead, sorry.
But I did see some individuals driving that in Fruitland. That's why I was just trying to, in my mind, thinking about this upcoming meeting, I was just questioning, and how do we, if we were to propose this and it was to pass, how do we stay consistent with local, smaller entities as far as Fruitland or even Wilton or things like that if they have them? Go ahead, Tom.
Yeah, I think most of your smaller towns do have something in place. Muscatine, they have the golf carts ordinance and I can run my side-by-side there, but they said major thoroughways, but nothing's defined in code on what the major thoroughways are. Is it the truck routes or is, I don't know. There's a big question is on there, and some of the police officers I talked to and sheriff deputies said as long as you're not doing anything stupid and crazy, they're not gonna pull you over.
Okay,
So,
Okay, Don.
thanks, Don.
Thank you for the extra.
Then no one should ever get pulled over, right?
I think that's a general rule, actually, from what I hear. Okay,
yeah.
Is that it, Don?
Well, like
Oh.
yeah, like me, if I wanna come in Muscatine, I gotta go up Stewart Road, okay, is once I hit the bypass, industrial connector is, Stewart Road, a major thoroughway. In order to get up to like, 8th Street or, even up to the Mississippi Drive, to go to the riverfront is, Hershey and, Mississippi Drive a major thoroughway. Nothing said in the thing. I think it's what you think is a major thoroughway, what I think is a major thoroughway, and what each individual thinks is a major thoroughway. Nothing is set in stone on what the major thoroughways are.
Okay.
So
All,
that's all I have, and hopefully I'll see you on the 8th then.
okay.
Thanks, guys.
Do we have anybody else, other members of the public wishing to comment this morning?
Not seeing anything.
Okay.
All of three and A.
So we see no others or hear no others. So we're gonna take a brief recess. It's 10:15. We'll take about a 5-minute recess and then we'll come back and the board will go into a closed session.
Okay.
So we're in recess for the next 5 minutes.